Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to Solar Systems, where we help you understand the system your soul goes into. Today we're going to be talking about your moon placement. Now, specifically, we're going to be talking about your moon in Leo placement. Now, you know the drill. Before we actually get into it, we have to break down the sign as well as the actual planet or moon that we're going to be talking about. Now, let's get into it. The moon is your mind. The moon is your mental vehicle that actually allows you to react and respond to what you have going on. It's what basically gives you your emotional traits. It's what gives you your emotional experience. It's what gives you your actual reaction to things. It's purely how you feel about things. What is your individual perspective on the matter? And the moon essentially is what actually dictates that for you. So with that being the case, you want to keep your moon comfortable, you want to keep your moon stable, you want to keep your moon in a space that it actually appreciates and wants to experience, right? Because without your moon being in a comfortable space and your mind being able to do what it needs to do, it can't exactly help you. So this is why this is a very important placement, because at the end of the day, it's what all of the light and experience runs through once you actually let it leave your sun. Now, when talking about the sun is actually your moon sign's home sign. It's what it likes to do, it's what allows it to feel comfortable, it's what puts you in a position to sit back and actually feel comfortable, right? To do what you want to do. And this is the lens that it's genuinely looking through. Now, with this being correlated to the sun, Leo doesn't exactly like it, but we'll get into that in a second. We have to understand a little bit more about the moon before we actually get into that, right? Now, the moon is very similar to your window. It's the window to your soul. It's the lens you look through when you're actually reacting and responding and intaking the information that you have with life, right? So with this being the case, the moon is very important. So it's important that you're not blocked by uncomfortability. It's important that you actually clean your esoteric window so that when you're looking out, you can react and respond with a clear lens and a clear view. Back to Leo, right? Leo is the fixed fire sign, meaning that it likes to fixate on its own way of viewing and feeling about things, right? This is a lot like a campfire. This is why these people want to be center stage. This is why this energy wants to position you in a space where you're only focused on one thing, and this is the only lens that you're paying attention to, right? So with this being the case, Leo was actually born from the fifth house. The fifth house is the space that gave birth to the Leo constellation, and it is the space that the sun really enjoys. Not as much as Aries, however, enjoys as much more than Sagittarius, and since it's Leo, it feels calm and at home in this space. Now, with this being the case, the fifth house is the experience of your expression, your actual, solar plexus, the space where you can just purely just be and actually express what you are from the space that you're at. Now, with Leo coming from the fifth house and it coming from the space of being center stage, the main focus, the main point of attention in the world, it knows a lot about how to manipulate people's focus and basically focus people on where they want them to look at. So, where these people can kind of be similar to Scorpio in a way is they may highlight certain things while a Scorpio will hide other things, which is why Leo and Scorpio can do some similar things when manipulating attention. So, be careful of that. But without getting too deep into Leo specifically, let's merge these two together and actually talk about Moon in Leo. So when actually talking about Moon in Leo, this energy and this placement can be best explained by the actual energy of pride is not the opposite of shame. However, it is its source. Because the Moon doesn't exactly like Leo, and Leo doesn't exactly like the Moon. So it's best to get this out the way first. Moon and Leo people prefer to do things much like a Sun and Leo person would. They feel it, this is naturally what they feel like they should be doing, this is naturally a space they feel like they should be putting themselves in. However, their Leo placement is not angling the sun, it's angling the moon. So it's always this energy of kind of lackluster experience and the inability to actually do what you want to do. So with all this in mind and being an actual Moon and Leo person, if you've had this placement for some time, meaning that you are older than 30, you've probably gone through this cycle a couple of times. The cycle that I'm going to be explaining is basically the cycle of being a dweeb, experiencing shame, observations, recreating what you've observed, having some characters that you kind of manifested and have down to a pack depending on what situation that you're in, as well as the good old identity crisis, then finding balance and kind of rejiggering that till you actually manifest the person who you are today, right? Now, when I say dweeb, I don't necessarily mean that you are a nerd or a Napoleon Dynamite or a Napoleon Bonaparte or anyone you really named Napoleon at the end of the day. You don't have to actually start out being that, right? But what people will notice, or what you may actually experience, is regardless of what status you may be in junior high or high school, you will notice that in some degrees you are a little insecure and you will be caught usually replicating something that you've actually experienced or thought was cool in the past, right? Whenever this comes out, whenever you're kind of put on the spot, and whenever you feel that you aren't manipulating the focus of the room in a way that is suitable for you, you may feel a little bit of insecurity and shame, which tends to lead you to observe. Now, why I say you are observing is because at the end of the day, whatever you have placed in Leo, especially if it's the moon, Leo is always opposite of Aquarius and directing its focus towards that, right? Aquarius and the 11th house basically influences you to focus on everything regarding the public arena, the public space, and relationships in a group setting, essentially. So when you get into that space of observation, this is what you're receding into yourself and focusing on what you want within this group setting so that you can actually extract the characteristics and the vision of how somebody expresses themselves in a way that you want to be seen and how you want to express yourself at the end of the day. So when you're in this observational setting, it may take a week, a month, a year, maybe on the back burner, who knows. The point is you're aligning yourself with someone that you actually want to reflect and emulate in a way. So with this being the case, this is a long drawn out process depending on how and where you decide to position yourself. So for instance, if this is just in a high school setting, you may be reflecting the jock or the theater kid or the music kid that is always seeming to be depressed or down on themselves but happens to acquire a lot of feminine energy or any energy of desire to reciprocate that, right? So whatever you want, whatever you decide to do, this is what you reflect. Obviously, this expands into the actual adult and more of the working world when you have a lot of things to deal with, you have a boss to please, so on and so forth. The list really goes on. The point being is when you actually have this Moon and Leo placement, you kind of look at everybody as characters and you sort of pick and choose who, where, and what you want to reflect, right? So with this being the case, this can go on for a long time. You can have a lot of characters in your back pocket, and eventually this turns to an amalgam of people that makes up who you are and what you want to be. Now, some may look at this as kind of a depressing way to live life or a questionable way to even live life because you're spending all this time not learning yourself and reflecting other people, right? However, that is not exactly the way to look at it because who you are at the end of the day is your perspective, your viewpoint, your individual space, your individual lens that you're looking out on your entire experience from. So if you find a way to actually have desires and manifest them in a way that is best suited for you while maintaining your individual perspective on how you want to do this and how you want to attract these characters, is it really that bad at the end of the day? Because maybe you haven't gone through the work of actually, creating and going through experiences that attract specific things that normally people would do on their own. However, at the end of the day, everybody is kind of faking it till they make it and emulating what they actually want to experience, right? So this is why it's not that bad, it just sounds bad. And the only reason it actually sounds bad is because the energy is kind of a mismatch. So no matter what you do or how you do it, if you end up sitting down and actually explaining to someone how you really got from point A to point B, they may look at you funny. But in reality, this is just a reflection of Leo having a distaste for the moon. Now, expanding on what I just dove into a little bit, talking about the questionability and how Leo has a mismatch with the moon, this can eventually lead to a big either midlife crisis or what typically happens with Moon and Leo people as an identity crisis, right? Now, with this identity crisis, you're essentially approaching the idea that I just explained in the last little section. You're having a conflict of interest with how you actually acquired your personality traits and what this sense of individuality and all that stuff actually means to you, right? Now, this is the thorn, if the thorn from the thorn and the rose when talking about observing people and how they act and recreating and reflecting that character that you think will work best in whatever situation you're into, right? When you do that and you actually forego going through your own experiences and figuring out your own idiosyncrasies and what you actually want to experience, and you're just poking and prodding at different puzzle pieces of what works in a situation, that can get a little stressful, especially with how society would look at that experience. However, if you've already gone through this, you know that it's not the end of the world and it's not the end of the day, right? And at the end of the tunnel, you eventually come to realize that doing this and going through these experiences is who you are. And just because you looked into how someone else acts and reflects on something and how they express themselves in certain experience and you like that and you decided to use it, that's not that bad. And at the end of the day, going through that experience and doing the things the way you do it, it is what it is. If you're a little bit of a copycat, own it. If you just poked and prod someone else's expression of how you're doing something and you put your own little spin on it, that's you at the end of the day. That's who you are. That's how you reflected on the experience that was directly in front of you, and that's how you just decided to experience it. So it's not all bad, but if you've already gone through that type of identity crisis where you realize you're just copying and pasting certain people's expressions that work well in certain settings, it is what it is, man. You're going to have to come to terms with it at the end of the day and realize that that was just your way of being you and experiencing that situation. Now, eventually you get through it once you make peace with yourself, once you find a form of logic or reasoning or a feeling you can ride on or an actual experience that pushes you past this little crisis, you tend to have a little bit of balance. Now, achieving this balance and actually going through all these situations may take some time. It isn't all bad, it isn't all good either, but you're going to oscillate between properly reflecting and going back and forth from that identity crisis here and there because it will leave a large impact on you as they typically do. However, moving back and forth from actually doing what you're doing and making peace with how you actually got to where you are is a part of the balance process. Now, you will probably never achieve the full aspect of balance in this lifetime. However, you will come close to it, as we all do. It's not going to be like a death bed regret type of thing. However, it will be something that you are always focusing on and always working towards. With this placement, you have to ask the question of, do I want to be peaceful? Do I want to be content? Or do I still want certain motivating factors to keep pushing me through the process and actually increasing and improving my abilities to be as balanced with my own signs and energies as I can? So it isn't all that bad, it isn't all that good either. Society doesn't really look at how you got to where you are in the best light, however, neither do you at certain points. But once again, Moon and Leo people are very good at observing the situation, figuring out what they need to express exactly to get where they want to go and to be seen in the light that they want to be seen in. So, if that's your goal and that's what you want to accomplish at the end of the day, great. You have nothing to worry about, no regrets. You will be experiencing this energy as best you can. So let's bring this full circle, right? Pride isn't the opposite of shame. However, it's source. So are you happy with how you are and how you got to where you are today?